All right, thanks for joining. So this video here I'm going to do is how to write a strong offer in a hot market or really any market so that you have a better chance of getting your client's offer accepted. So there's quite a few things that you can do to stand out. And to preface it, my philosophy on this is predominantly to stand out in any way possible, because if they're going to get an offer from 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 people, depending on the market strength, that you want to, one, stand out, and two, you want to be seen as the best communicator and the most competent agent that's sending in an offer, because a lot of the strength of your buyer's offer will be determined by what that agent thinks of you as the other agent, because you can definitely make or break that transaction for them and for their clients. So number one is always reaching out, asking questions, picking up the phone and calling. Some of them might not appreciate if they're getting a lot of calls, but pick up the phone and call, unless it specifically says do not call. So I always do, before we submit the offer, I'll talk to my clients. I'll ask what questions they have. I'll ask, what is most important to you? Is it just price, or do we need to look at a specific time frame, right? Some clients need to end up paying more money for a house and just locking one down because they have a very specific time frame. Other people are out there looking for a deal, so just know that might take longer, and set the expectations. But that also plays into the offer that you're making with that buyer. Is how are you going to position that offer? Is it based on them needing something now, writing every single piece of it to be the strongest offer possible? Or are you accommodating some of the seller's needs so that you can find a happy medium towards what they want and what you want? So again, I'm talking to my clients before making that offer, and then I'm going in to make a call to the listing agent, and I'm asking them all sorts of questions, and typically those questions include the things that they should not answer based on the contract they have with their seller. So we're going to ask them, first and foremost, do you have any offers on the table? Great. How many offers are you looking at right now? Are there any significantly above asking, or are they near asking? Okay, do you mind sharing, would something like 10 over or 15,000 over win us, or you look a little higher than that? I just kind of like to butter them up and lead them into giving me that answer. Then I'll go into questions such as, is money the most important thing to your seller? Or are there other things, time frame or terms and conditions based, that are actually more important to their current needs that we can accommodate with our offer? Most of the time it's money, or they think it's money and they haven't asked those questions. But when you have a chance to write an offer based on something else, maybe they need a lease back or a post-closing occupancy. Maybe they need to sell in 21 days because they have a 1031 exchange or a job transfer or a baby on the way, right? There's so many different scenarios that you can work with, and those are just a couple of common ones that you'll deal with. So ask the questions, why are the sellers moving? Where are they going? How soon do they need to be there? Could we get this offer locked up today, or do you need 24 hours to respond to our offer? Right? We don't want to write an offer with a 2-hour deadline if the sellers are in 2 different states and one of them works in a top secret facility where they can't take their phone. That's not going to do you any good. You're just going to have to resend it in. So ask lots of questions, be a good communicator, show that you're trying to get it right the first try, and appease their seller's needs. So we'll get into this here. This is a document put together actually by an old team I was on, Group 4610 Network, also at Exp Realty, based out of Arizona. And I use this still because it is a really great resource that everyone should be using to write a strong offer. So we're going to go through each one, the important items to remember when working with buyers. So first and foremost, before you go out showing properties, make sure that you hold a buyer's consultation with that buyer and get the paperwork signed. Make sure that they have already gone and talked to a lender and that they have a pre-qualification or pre-approval. We don't want to be showing them homes that they can't afford, or homes way under the level where they want to be shopping and are able to shop, because they might get discouraged of what they're seeing. So make sure those processes are done in the right order. If you hold your business to high standards, people will also hold you to high standards and will treat you like a business owner, and you'll begin to own your own time. So I'm not setting showings when buyers want to. And that's because if they have not committed to me, then I cannot commit to them. if they have not committed to themselves to get their loan processed, then I can't commit to them either, because they need to take that 30 to 60 minutes and put that through the loan processor's hands. All right, so places to search for inventory. We're going to be looking on the MLS primarily. In Northern Colorado, we have Iris. In Denver, we have RE Colorado. And those are the two big ones here. You have another one in Colorado Springs, one out west. And of course, if you're in another state or another city, you're going to be seeing them there too. So every piece of listed information is on the MLS. And if you have an IDX feed from the MLS feeding that information to your website, then you have the most up-to-date information. Stress with your clients, they do not need to be on Realtor.com. They do not need to be on Trulia or Zillow or JoeSellsHomes.com unless that's your website. But of course, you have the most up-to-date information. They can't find anything different on those other websites. The only information they can find elsewhere is for sale by owners, which is changing here. So this might even be outdated for Zillow, because I believe they're charging now. We have some off-market inventory always between our team and other teams, so we can check internally. We can check with our other agent partners in different cities or around the same city to see what they have coming up. We're well networked online. Join the different Facebook groups for realtors if you have not. For example, in Northern Colorado is local real estate licensed agents only is the page, and there's about 1,000 realtors on there of the 7,000 in the region. And then we're going to be looking off market for our buyers as well. That's how we operate, at least. So my team, we're going to be cold calling to find a house in a neighborhood that is not yet for sale, to find a seller that would like to sell their house and agrees to our client's terms. Just know that if you do find someone off market, you do have an obligation to let them know what their house is worth. You cannot take advantage of someone just because they answer the phone. All right, you have to treat them fairly. You do have a real estate license. All right, important elements of every offer. Again, call the listing broker, ask questions, go through the details of what's important. Make sure that you write a clean offer. There's not a ton that needs to be in almost every offer. There's certain check boxes you check and certain lines you fill in. The rest you just leave blank. So I have a video going through the offer portion of it, but really it doesn't need to have a whole lot. Make sure you're filling it out. Make sure you're not pretending to be a lawyer and putting in fake legal advice in the additional provision section. Most of it just means nothing. All right. Proof of funds letter or a pre-qualification or pre-approval. If it's cash, they should have a a proof of funds letter, either a screenshot from their bank, a letter from their banker, which is the strongest version, or if they have a loan, get a pre-qualification, or the stronger version would be a pre-approval. All right, sometimes that takes 1, 2, or 3 days to get. If it takes a week or two, then the lender is doing something wrong or the buyer hasn't finished filling it out. If you see any addendums in the MLS, if there's an iris, it will say, let's take a look here. The wording, it just says documents right under the top chunk of information. In RE Colorado, there's a little icon on the bottom right of the photos that looks like a couple pieces of paper stacked. If that's there, there's some additional documents. When you send in your offer, if they've given you those documents, check to see if there's an offer writing outline. See if there's something they've given you to help you. But look for all the disclosures, and if they have given them to you, get your buyer to sign them and include them with your offer, your pre-approval letter, and everything else that you're going to send, because that just makes it more streamlined down the process to know that those things are already done and the agent knows that you're being proactive, which is a good step. Give the lender a call, make sure the numbers work. So oftentimes taxes can change, HOAs can change. If you have a different ratio in every house of purchase price to taxes to HOA, then you are going to get a different final purchase price that your buyer is allowed in. For example, if taxes go up $1,000 or there's another $100 a month on the HOA, then that's going to change the final purchase price. So check with your lender, be sure that it works before you get that offer out if you're able to. And then be really great to work with, right? No one wants to work with an asshole. So they also don't want to work with someone that doesn't answer their phone. So answer your phone, reply quickly via text or email, call them back, be very easy to communicate. The biggest complaint about realtors is that we are terrible communicators and we never answer our phones. So just set yourself apart and do the right thing. All right. This is super important to write a well-written email to accommodate that offer. So we call it similar to like a cover letter. We're going to let them know that my buyer is qualified. They're very excited to purchase the house. Here's what our offer includes. So in the summary section of the terms, I do bullet points personally, and I do bullet points of our offer is at $465,000. That's 25,000 above asking price. We have a conventional loan. The buyer is not contingent on selling another home. The buyer is local. I am a local, licensed, and full-time realtor. You're not going to have to hold my hand. The buyer is paying for closing costs. The buyer is paying for E&O insurance. The buyer is covering the seller's remaining taxes for the year. Whatever you want to write into that contract and put in your summary to make your offer stand out and look more attractive to the seller, always put that in your headline. There is another tool, I believe it's called High Note. And High Note currently is a wait list, but it's a new tool that allows you to digitally present an offer in a pretty exciting way. There is a cost associated with it, but it looks pretty cool, so we're taking a look at it ourselves. So write that letter, check with the agent, be good to communicate with, don't be an asshole. So that's the start there. So how to write a strong offer now that we get in there. A strong offer has a lot of components to it, and every offer might look mostly similar, but there's going to be things that are a little bit different. And when you're competing against other offers, just know that there are these little things you can do to stand out. So one little item that changes $10 is still another bullet point that you can include that someone else might not. All right, so the first one's an escalation clause. An escalation clause is where you say, my buyer will pay $1,000 over the next highest offer or $5,000 more than the next highest offer up until this point with the accompaniment of the competing offer that we're using to initiate that escalation clause. Make sure you use the correct verbiage. Check with your managing broker to see what verbiage you can use. But know that some sellers hate those and they just want to see your highest and best and don't want to play games. So there's somewhat of a risk there, but a lot of times it is a great strategy. And if I'm comparing two offers, as much as I don't like the escalation clauses, most of my clients are like, well, that's $5,000. I really don't care that that's how they wrote it. And if they agree to that $5,000, then fantastic. Now the seller gets it. You can shorten your inspection period. Typically, it's about 7 to 10 days. Just check with your inspector, though, because like right now as I'm doing this, November 2021, our inspector's booked out about 9 days. So we really can't shorten it a whole lot without going to another inspector that I don't know, like, or trust as much. And so just take a look at that. But shortening the inspection period is a helpful item. Just give your clients enough time to go through the inspection and be comfortable with it because, again, it's about them. You can increase your earnest money from the normal typical 1% to any amount above that. Just know that does put your clients at risk if, in case that small chance of them losing their earnest money does come into play. You can immediately release earnest money. So you can make your earnest money a non-refundable deposit immediately, and that is very important for that process moving forward, right? If you don't get your money back, well, you're going to be more inclined to stay in the contract and not terminate based on a small inspection item, for example. You can do a clause based on the appraisal, so appraisal gap coverage. In Colorado, it is legal. In other states, it might not be. For example, if you say that if your contract is for or the the list price is at $450, you offer $475. You might want to say that the buyer is willing to bring $5,000 or $10,000 above appraisal value in case it falls short. Because what if that comes in at $460? The seller is probably not going to want to go from $475 down to $460 and lose all that money. So you can say that your buyer is willing to bring a certain number above the appraisal if it comes in low up until that offer price. So make sure, again, that that's worded correctly. Find the right verbiage so you don't get yourself into trouble. We cannot practice law. We can have the appraisal done early. If you're putting 50% or more down, sometimes they will waive the appraisal. There's a new program out there called Accept.Inc. That does not need an appraisal, that they help you buy the house cash, although the buyer uses a loan. A very cool program. You can use an as-is addendum. However, just know that writing the buyer will purchase the house as is and the additional provisions changes absolutely nothing. It's nice. It's a nice little high five in there. but the contract in Colorado is already as is, and there's no need to change it. So I would just include that verbiage in the email, even though most agents don't know that it means nothing written in there. I would include that in the email, say that the buyer is just looking for health, safety, big ticket, or structural items. They're not looking to nitpick the seller. You can update the closing period based on what the seller wants. So based on the seller's desired closing timetable. Again, that's based on the agent asking the seller agent what they want. Of course, you have vacant. That property is going to want to close quick, most likely. And if it's occupied, the seller might have another transaction scheduled or another move-in date that they need to work around. If the seller needs to lease back, right? If they're buying new construction or buying another house and they don't want to be contingent, they might ask you for 60 days for a lease back, so they have up to 30 days to find a house and 30 days to close on it without needing to sell their house first, that they just live there as a tenant short time. That would be done at the post-closing occupants agreement. You have to check it and notate it in the offer. It's very important you get that done ahead of time because the seller does not need to sign it later on. And you'll want to negotiate the rent prices, the insurance, things like that. Going back to that, though, one of the things that's important there is notating how much rent will be paid. A lot of times the buyer tries to get it for free since the seller wants to get it for free because the buyer doesn't need to make their first payment for a month or two. It's not that big of a financial burden. It can only be up to 60 days tops. You should be having the person staying in the house cover all the utilities and get their own insurance for the house, but that is a negotiating point completely. You can waive contingencies. Only certain ones can be waived, though. Some tied to the loan just cannot be waived unless you're paying with cash where the lender gives you that ability. We don't do that one a ton. Love letters are okay on the buyer's point. You can send off a letter to the listing agent telling them why your buyer is the greatest buyer in the world, why they should buy the house, etc. Just be cautious doing these because there are certain instances where information you put in there can become a fair housing violation if you cross into any of the protected classes. You can offer to cover the buyer agent fees. So instead of coming out of the seller's commission, you can have part of the buyer's offer go towards the commission and increase that so that the seller is netting more money. You can also offer to cover the seller's closing costs. So certain closing costs might be the seller's title policy, which is a sliding scale. Around here, maybe for a $500,000 house, you're looking around $1,600. You can offer to cover the taxes for the year, since taxes are paid at the end of the year or in the following year. You can offer to pay for the days they've lived in the house. Just make sure you do the math on that, know what it is. You can offer to cover the seller's closing costs, the owner's extended coverage, the HOA transfer fees, the special assessment, anything like that that could fall onto the seller. The buyer can offer to take that off their plate and put that in the offer. The buyer can put in there that they are motivated to close on time, and if they do not, they will pay a penalty for closing late. That's a good one there. Use the best payment option if your buyer has available. So you can maybe have them pre-approved for a conventional or cash or FHA and just have the seller choose. And of course, we're pretty good friends. Hopefully you should be too, with a lot of agents in your area. And you want to make sure that you're well networked so people know when an offer is coming in so they can be confident that you're going to do a great job working with them and their clients. So this is an opportunity to take a look at some of the different escalation clauses. For example, number 1 here, if the seller has received a competing offer for property prior to accepting this offer with a net price greater than the net price of this offer, then the purchase price of this offer shall be increased to an amount of X dollars more than the net price of the competing offer up to blank maximum purchase price blank. So let's say $1,000 more than blank. But we want to look at net price of the competing offer and maybe just be cautious of that wording because net price can mean different things to different people. So just go look at that and then go through all these things with your clients and let me know if you have any questions or want to discuss this further. Thank you.